This video we're talking about binomial radical expressions, part 2. The last video stopped with review of FOILing. So now we're going to FOIL, or distribute, as I might say, two radical expressions. Radical just means that in this expression, an expression is just terms added or subtracted together, there's a radical, and in this expression, there's a radical. Well, it is still the same thing. The 4 has to be distributed. So 4 times 5. I'm going to do this out the long way first. And then 4. So it's going to be added because this is a positive. So it's going to be 4 times square root 2. And then 2 square root 2 has to be distributed. So it's going to be, again, positive because they're both positive numbers. 2 square root 2 times 5, and then I have to distribute to the end. So it's going to be 2 square root 2 times 4 square root 2. And some people might be able to do this part in their head without having to write out the 4 times 5. That's fine if that's you. I just want to show it the long way first. So now I'm going to simplify each term. So this becomes 20 plus, I can combine these like terms, so that'd be 16 square root 2. Here I can combine the 2 and the 5 because they are both outside of the root, so that becomes 10 square root 2. And then here, if I look, this becomes square root 2 times square root 2 becomes square root 4, which square root 4 is 2. So this last term would be 2 times 4. This 2 comes from the square root 4, 2 comes from the beginning 2 and beginning 4. So that's going to be 16. Now, here I can combine my like terms. Both of these are square root 2's. So my final answers, and I also can combine these two because they're both just numbers with no radicals. My final answer would be 36 plus, I just remember add the leading coefficient, so that'd be 26 square root 2. Final answer. Again, I showed a lot of work here. It depends on how well you know your math facts on how much work you should show. Right now I want you to pause the video. Yes, pause the video. Pause the video. I want you to do this one all by yourself. Be careful here, this is like a negative. If you want to, you can change this so it says plus a negative because that's going to give you negative numbers. You should have gotten 8 minus square root 7. Again, you can check your work above, but typically when I will do this in class, I will go from this step to this step. I'm not going to write out this first step. It just depends on if you want to do that. Now when we multiply conjugates, first you have to know what a conjugate is. The next two expressions are conjugates. Why? Because they have the same numbers. They have 5 at the beginning and they have square root 7 at the end, except this middle mathematical thing is opposite of each other. So one's positive, one's negative. That means they're conjugates. So if I multiply these two conjugates together, I'll have 5 times 5, that's 25 first. I'll have 5 times a positive square root 7, so it'll be 5 square root 7. And then I have to distribute the second term. So negative square root 7 times 5, so it'll be negative 5 square root 7. And negative square root 7 times square root 7, that becomes a negative, and square root 7 times square root 7 will just be 7. The thing about conjugate is that here's my like terms, and when you have two like terms, this middle term, they should cancel each other out. You should have no more radicals once you multiply your conjugates together. So really I just have 25 minus 7, which is going to be 18. Again, positive 5 square root 7 and subtract 5 square root 7 will cancel out, so this will be my final answer. Right now I want you to pause the video and see if you get the same answers I do when you multiply your conjugates together. Your first answer should have been 24 and your second answer is 1. Look back at my work and compare it to yours if you did not get those two answers. So why do we have conjugates? Because when we rationalize the denominator, it has adding, subtracting in it, we need to use the conjugate. So I want to rationalize this denominator, meaning get all of the radicals out of the bottom of the fraction. So first thing you do is multiply the top and bottom by the conjugate. So in this case, it'd be square root 5 and square root 2, because the number should stay the same. Whenever you multiply on bottom, you have to multiply on top. And since my original had subtraction, I want to make sure my conjugate had is addition. So here, I want to distribute both on top and bottom. There's only one term on top, so I have to distribute that to both terms. So it's going to be 3 square root 2 times square root 5 plus 3 square root 2 times square root 2 over. I have to multiply the bottom, so again, that's FOILing. So I'm going to have square root 5 times square root 5 plus square root 5 times square root 2 minus square root 2 times square root 5 and subtract square root 2 times square root 2. Again, that was just distributing my first term and my second term. Now I'm going to simplify the top and bottom. This first term would be 3 square root 10. This second term is going to be, this becomes square root 4, and square root of 4 is 2. So 3 times 2 would give me 6. This bottom term is going to just give me 5, because it would be the square root of 25. Plus this would be the square root of 10 minus the square root of 10 minus 4. Again, I can still simplify. The bottom is already simplified, or the top, is already simplified. I can't do anything there. But I can have 3 square root 10 plus 6 on top. And then these two will cancel each other out because they're opposite of each other. And then I have 5 minus 4. So really you could have your answer written like that, or just the top, because any number over 1 is just that same number. I want you to try just this first A all by yourself. I want you to rationalize the denominator by using the conjugate. So your answer might be a little bit different. If you can see from this step to here, I took out a 2 from both terms because both of these have a 2. Why did I do that? So I could simplify the fraction further. Since there's a 2 on top that's being multiplied and a 4 on bottom because my 9 minus 5 simplified to be 4, I can simplify that fraction so it would be 1 over 2. I don't have to write the 1, but if you want to write the 1, you sure can. And that would be your final answer. So make sure you took good notes and have a great day.